Welcome in to the Boys Collective episode number 7 here on 105 Through the Fan here on YouTube. Of course, my name is Kevin Gray alongside Super Bowl winning scout and 1/4 of the G-Bag Nation, Brian Broaddus. Brian, good to see you on this Monday. How are you?
Doing excellent, KG. I hope you had a great bye week and now turns into the serious sprint to try and get this thing locked up. Cowboys got a little bit of good news this weekend with some losses, with the football team and then the Eagles as well. The Giants get a nice win for them, but sitting pretty good as they come out of this bye week. We'll see what happens with their quarterback, but all indications are that things should be okay for that. Again, if you're a Cowboy fan, clearly keep your fingers crossed for that.
Definitely, for sure. Make sure you check us out on 105 Through the Fan here on YouTube, also on 105throughthefan.com and all of our social media platforms for the Boys Collective. This is episode number 7, and as Brian alluded to, the Minnesota Vikings are going to get a visit from your Dallas Cowboys on Sunday Night Football on Halloween night, the final Sunday of the month of October, as the Cowboys look to extend their winning streak to 6 games, as the Dallas Cowboys got some help without even having to play a game on Sunday, as the Washington football team lost to the Green Bay Packers while the Las Vegas Raiders were able to take care of business against the Philadelphia Eagles. The Giants did win at home against the Carolina Panthers, but as things stand right now, the Dallas Cowboys find themselves 3.5 games clear of everyone else in the NFC East as it currently stands, with that 5-1 record, while the rest of the NFC East sits at 2-5. Meanwhile, the hopefully good news for as the week goes on for the Dallas Cowboys, as we jump into the Broaddus files here, is that one Rain Dak Prescott will be ready to go on Sunday evening, dealing with that strained right calf muscle. Obviously, we know a little something about calf injuries this year. The Dallas Cowboys have been dealing with one, Michael Gallup, in terms of his calf injury, but Dak Prescott, obviously, as things have continued to progress and as news has come out throughout the weekend, it appears, based on what we've heard so far, Brian, that Dak Prescott will, in fact, be ready to go with hopefully no setbacks as he continues to ramp up and get ready for the Vikings this weekend.
Yeah, Dr. Jerry Jones coming on 105.3.
That's right.
Getting thumbs up. I will say this, though, KG, the medical staff is optimistic about that, and again, visiting with some guys, over in that front office about Dak, and Jerry's always really, really good about information. I don't think Jerry Jones comes on 105.3, the Fan, and lies about things. I think there's, he pretty much sets you straight on what he's believing that Jim Maurer, the head trainer, is telling him. But there is, we'll see how the practices start this week. Will it be that Dak is limited? Are we going to wait till, Thursday, Friday before we get a report of, Dak's availability? And again, there's no reason not to believe Jerry Jones, because he does get the straight medical report from Jim Maurer. But again, I think the trainers, doctors are cautiously optimistic right now. And like I said, I think the first couple of practices might be on a limited basis, and then probably ramp up as we get towards the end of the week.
Additionally, NFL Network's Ian Rappaport reporting over the weekend that Dak Prescott out of the protective boot that he was wearing on Sunday after the game against the Patriots. Been doing some pool work, I guess, as he continues to strengthen his calf muscle to get ready to go into the game against the Minnesota Vikings. So all things looking like it trending in the positive direction for Dak Prescott to be ready to play for the Cowboys on Sunday night when they take on the Minnesota Vikings. Some other housekeeping notes, if you will, coming out over the weekend. CeeDee Lamb, Trayvon Diggs, and Connor Williams all fined for various reasons against the Patriots. CeeDee Lamb fined $10,300 for unsportsmanlike conduct because he waved goodbye to Jalen Mills on Sunday. And I guess the NFL, after thinking about it a little more, says, yeah, maybe we shouldn't necessarily encourage that, even though the NFL's Twitter account had actually tweeted that photo out and video out after the game was over with. I guess the NFL didn't like that all that much. Trayvon Diggs was fined $7,981 for unnecessary roughness for smacking a Patriots player around on Sunday. And, of course, Connor Williams was fined over 10 grand for his unsportsmanlike penalty that ironically got him to 3rd and 25. Prescott completes the 24-yard pass to set him up for field goal range, and we know how things ended from there. So just a little bit of housekeeping when it comes to the Cowboys. There also no additional news or report for DeMonte KZ. When Jerry Jones joined us on 105 Through the Fan on Friday, had said that he had not heard from the NFL with respect to DeMonte KZ, who was arrested for DWI. No further news on that as things have gone on throughout the weekend there.
Yeah, KG, I thought that you did a really fine job of you and RJ Choppy of interviewing Jerry Jones and getting to the bottom of some of these things. I will say this. I know for a fact that the organization, and nobody should be happy about a DUI or DWI. I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean, mistakes happen. But, the fact that it was with KZ, I think, was a little more problematic for the front office in a way, because he actually has been such a leader in that locker room. There's a lot of respect for him. Dan Quinn brings him over really from Atlanta. He was the guy that when everything first started, that there were a couple of guys, him, Keanu Neal. These are guys that had played for Dan Quinn. So that was a really good source for a Randy Gregory or a Leighton Vander Esch or Tank or anybody that wanted to know, hey, what kind of coach is Joe Witt? What kind of coach is Dan Quinn? What kind of coach are, the defensive line coach? I mean, these guys were resources, and they were looked to in the locker room as really positive guys that made a difference, guys that came in and played hard, and everybody really looked up to. So I was told that the front office they were surprised that it was him, and and disappointed in the same regard, because again, of all the positivity, of all the good things that he had done up until that point, but to have a player like I said that they've really leaned on, this season, to have to go through that was a disappointment overall.
And never something that you want to have at any point, but especially during a bye week where all eyes are going to be on those trying to stay out of trouble, given the fact that you don't want any distractions heading into what's going to be an important week of preparation to take on the Minnesota Vikings. With that, let's go to the boys' mailbag. We've had some questions come in over the bye week with respect to America's team that we want to have a chance to answer here on the Boys Collective here on 105 Through the Fan on YouTube. A lot of idle time, as a lot of folks were able to enjoy football this weekend. Were you able to take in more football than you're accustomed to with the Cowboys being off this past weekend?
It's funny how on open weeks that I get to watch football, that, because again, my responsibility for Cowboys pregame, actual game, watching the Cowboys play, and then watching post game or having to do post game. So yeah, it was really, to see Arizona finally play, to see Green Bay play, to see the Rams play, it really kind of gives you an idea of really what the Cowboys might be up against. I know we're halfway through. I mentioned it as sprint. There's still a lot of work there, but you really, you said it the best, KG, that it's the last weekend of October, and we're going to look up, and then it's going to be the last week of November, and then you're thinking, okay, that December, those games and, games against Arizona and division games and stuff like that. I mean, those are all going to be huge. And to be honest with you, this season is flying by, as you look at things. So, yeah, but to your point, it was nice to be able to sit down and watch a little football.
Yeah, it would have been better if there hadn't been so many blowouts over the weekend.
Bad weekend for football.
Yeah, I will say that.
College and pro. A lot of
blowouts this weekend. So hopefully the little bit more competitive action as we get into this coming week of football. Well, let's open the boys' mailbag right here on the Boys Collective here on 105 Through the Fan. We'll start with this question on Twitter. From Boys fan in Philly, assuming this is a Dallas Cowboys fan in Philadelphia who did not have a good weekend this weekend. The question is, hey, Brian, is Randy Gregory better from a 2-point stance than a 3-point stance, or is this just a result of having a full offseason and training camp this past year?
Yeah, I think to me that when you look at Randy, I think it's really more about not having things above his head. What he had to go through with the NFL, I know for a fact that a guy had his case, the guy went away, somebody else had to come in and take over his case. There was all that just legal wrangling. I shouldn't call it legal, but I mean, within the league office of trying to get Randy Gregory eligible to play, and finally him to have a full offseason, full OTAs, everything, full training camp, I think was a huge benefit. For Randy, playing with his hand down, I think is really his best, because to me, what happens with Randy is he's able to stay low. And when defensive linemen are taught to rush, they rush. If they could get that shoulder down, whatever side they're on, get that near shoulder down and around the blocker to shorten that corner. I think that's where Randy's his absolute best. Standing up, he's a little bit more movie or twitchy, if you want to say, quick, with the movement, whereas hand down is more of an attack and then finish kind of a mode. So when Randy is low and running low, he doesn't have a lot. He's not a very wide guy. He's narrow, but what he is, you have a hard time as a blocker getting your hands on him. You might get a hand on the shoulder pad. Whoa, I missed the hip. Now he's by you. Now he's on the quarterback. So I think Randy, hand down, is best Randy. Standing up Randy, probably not his best, and it probably not as good for him playing the run that way. When he's not, because he's standing up and he's kind of a little bit high, and maybe blockers get in on him a little bit, and he has to fight those blocks. So hand down Randy is good Randy for me.
Watching him convert speed to power has been fun to watch so far this season.
Well, he mentioned it. Yeah, he mentioned it. Two of his 4 sacks, and then you say speed to power and stuff like that. He mentioned it after the game, the last game against New England. It's like 2 of my 4 sacks are me just bull rushing, and he felt like that he needed to get a little bit better with some of those moves, the swats, the swims, the pulls, stuff that he's very, very capable of doing.
Next question on Twitter comes from Young Zeus _14 on Twitter. With a trade deadline coming up on Tuesday, November 2nd, what do you think is the biggest position of need for the Cowboys with the trade deadline less than 2 weeks away?
I think they could sure use another corner. I think that Brown has played really well. To his credit, I threw a lot of dirt on him, thrown dirt on Jordan Lewis. Diggs is, we really don't have to talk about Diggs. Diggs still gets attacked, but that's because I think he's carrying your primary receiver, and no offensive coordinator is going to go away from his primary guy or his number one guy. But could they use another? Is like I said, I was watching these games. When you watch the Packers and the Rams and the Cardinals, you kind of get an idea of they got receivers. Alan Lazar playing for the Packers this weekend. He had 10 catches going into the game. This against the football team. He had 5 catches in the first half on one drive. So these teams that you have to deal with, like say Tampa, Green Bay, Arizona, the Rams, teams you're going to compete. Even Minnesota Vikings this weekend. They have multiple receivers, and to match up, you're going to have to be able to cover. And I don't know if you have enough. We'll see what happens with Kelvin Joseph and stuff. I don't particularly think that Kelvin Joseph is going to be a huge help right now. Now, maybe in week 12, when he gets his feet underneath him, maybe that'll be the case. But I think if I was the Cowboys, I would be really, really looking at the possibility of adding a veteran corner if I could.
And honestly, you started to allude to it. I think this Cowboys team thinks that the best acquisitions will be just getting healthy.
That Jerry Jones came on. You guys asked him that question. It was an excellent question about, do you feel like you'll be buyers at the trade deadline? And he was like talking about, hey, I don't know who we're going to cut to get Neville Gallimore back, to get Tank Lawrence back, to get Kelvin Joseph back. That's a problem. But I hope that doesn't deter them
Sure.
from at least trying, because I guarantee you the Rams are going to add somebody. The Buccaneers are likely going to add somebody. The Buccaneers have already tried to add, like the Richard Shermans and stuff like that. These teams are going for it. Maybe not the Packers. The Packers are a little bit more close to the vest type of team. But I guarantee it, Arizona, the Rams, the Buccaneers, those teams are going to be aggressive trying to add something for the second half.
Stephen Jones' old adage will be tested, as it is every trade deadline, that they're in the talent acquisition business 365 days a year. We'll see if he fulfills on some of that during this trade deadline. Last question here in our Cowboys in our boys mailbag this week. This comes from Jesse Andrew 22 on Twitter. As the Cowboys start to get prepared to take on the Minnesota Vikings and get back on the road this weekend, are you concerned about Mike McCarthy's clock management impacting the Cowboys later down the road in a big game potentially?
Yeah, that's the thing. And again, here's the guy that's on radio for 5 hours a day. And, people think that I have a problem with Mike McCarthy, a personal problem. And it's not personal. But I know what happened in Green Bay, because I spent 5 years of my life in Green Bay. I have relationships. I have relationships with the guys and gals at the Cowboys. So, I know things that go on there. I think if the team was 1-5, pressure would be a lot more on Mike McCarthy's style of how he handles things. But the team's 5-1. So everybody's like, oh, it's okay, Brian, it's fine. But yeah, I'm not going to lie. I do worry about losing track of a down. I do worry about losing track of the clock. I do have a problem with when it's a 15-yard penalty for unsportsmanlike conduct. It's a loss of down, and that's where the ball is going to be. There's not these are things you have to know. He's not the primary play caller on offense. He's not the primary defensive play caller. Your job is to manage the game. And to his credit, he's allowed Dan Quinn, Kellen Moore, Joe Philbin, Skip Pete, George Edwards. He's allowed these guys to coach. And I think that's where I think that he's done his absolute best work. But to the point of the question that was asked, yes, because there's going to come a point in time where you're going to lose track or lose a game because of something that happened that a coach could have managed. And, I think that's the unfortunate thing, because history tells me, you could go back and Google 2017 Green Bay Packers and see things that happened with Mike McCarthy, clock management, some of the things that you kind of see in this today. And, I'm not making it personal. I'm just telling you just to be aware of when something like that does happen.
And part of what's interesting about some of that is that, Jerry Jones has gone on 105 through the fan, home of the Cowboys, and said, look, a lot of teams around the NFL are bad at clock management. A lot of coaches are bad at it. I think my counterpoint to that would be, well, that's not an excuse for your coach to be bad at it.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
I would hope that you would want to set a bit better standard for your head coach to be above whatever average is or whatever below average is when it comes to managing the situations, especially if you feel like your team has a chance to really make a deep run in the NFC playoffs, where the margins matter as you get deeper into the season, especially as you get into the playoffs, where you don't want to see your team have to overcome one of your coach's bad decisions in order to try and win a football game, much like how the Cowboys had to overcome Mike McCarthy's clock management when they beat the Chargers and Greg Zuerlein bailed him out. So that's where my ultimate kind of concern comes, is that just because your coach may not necessarily be great at it, it doesn't mean, or coaches around the league aren't necessarily great at it, doesn't mean you should expect your coach to be bad at it too, because there should be, I think, a better standard when it comes to things of that nature.
Well, and let me be honest with you, KG, talking to people in the front office with the Cowboys, McCarthy every Friday has what he's called the GMC. And the GMC stands for Game Management Committee, where he gets together he's got an analytics coach there that really handles and they talk about on Friday how to manage games, and if you have, I appreciate him having the effort and trying to set things up and, going through scenarios where you have this many timeouts, you have this much time, you have, I appreciate going through all that and maybe mocking situations. But my God, if you have this GMC and you still make mistakes, well, who is that on? Mm-hmm. I don't care. I don't care that Andy Reid has clock problems in Kansas City. I don't care that Sean Payton has clock problems in New Orleans. I don't care that that Urban Meyer has clock problems in Jacksonville. I cover this team. I watch this team, and if you're going to give away a game because you're not handling those situations, you put the players in situations to make plays. All these players the only thing you could do now for players want you to manage the game the right way.
Correct.
They don't want to play 59 minutes and have you blow the last minute of that game and cost them a victory. They don't want that. As you trust them, they've got to trust you. Mm-hmm. And if you're not living up to your side of the bargain, that's a problem. And so far, so good for the Cowboys. It's not bitching, folks. I'm not bitching. I'm just telling you that if you want to say something to keep an eye on about this football team, that's something you can keep an eye on right there.
Definitely. And I think that's part of the reason why conversations like this, not only between us, but I'm sure those conversations are happening in terms of at the Star in Frisco, because if you're going to be a team with these kinds of aspirations, these are the kinds of things that you want to make sure that are corrected by the time you get to deeper parts of the season, so that you have that full trust and confidence between coach and player, that the coach will not only put the player in the best situation to succeed, but they can trust the coach to know that they will be able to execute based on what the time, situation, clock is to be able to be successful in those moments. And that's all we're asking for. We just want the Cowboys to be successful. That's all. Right. That's all we want.
Well, if like you said, you're 5-1, and Mike McCarthy obviously is doing something correct. Mm-hmm. Whether it's allowing Kellen Moore, Dan Quinn, the coaching staff, he's doing something right. And I think you have to give him credit for that. But this team could be 1-5 and he could be doing the same thing. And we would all be like, our hands would be,
yeah. What's going on here?
Yeah. He's doing the same thing at 5-1 as he would do at 1-5. So, that's sometimes you get fortunate that way.
Credit to his players for overcoming Mike McCarthy himself at times. As we get ready to close here, let's go into our 3 best Cowboys of the season. Obviously, the Cowboys had a chance to rest and relax for the most part. Dak Prescott living it up at the Stars game this weekend. So the Cowboys are able to, relax and have a good time. Now it's time to get back to work. And as we reflect on the first 6 games for this team, as we mentioned, 5-1 with a chance to extend that winning streak to 6 games. For you, who have been your 3 Cowboys that have stood out most to you and have had the biggest factor in how this team has been able to play so far through the first 6 games to see them where they are in the NFC picture right now?
Yeah, I think it's real easy, KG, to talk about how well the quarterbacks played, but the quarterback hasn't had to go out and win the games. I mean, he had to go out and win the game the other day against the Patriots, I believe. But you look at overall throwing 26, 27 passes a game. I think to me that when you look at and I kind of lump this in a group, I think you got to put the running backs as probably one of those areas where I'm like, wow, Ezekiel Elliott, what he's been able to do to recommit himself, the body, Tony Pollard, we always talk about him. Together, these 2 guys have given you a lot of flexibility. You needed him in week 1 to pass block. They weren't a factor running. And then there was a middle part of the season there, or the middle part of the winning streak, where you needed to run the ball and you were effective doing that. And then last week you have to throw the ball, and these guys only have 2 passes that are incomplete to them. The rest of the time they're catching footballs and stuff like that. So, I mean, to me, you just look overall, I've been super impressed with them. I've been super impressed what you've gotten from the right tackle during the 5-game winning streak. I didn't ever believe that Terrence Steele would be able to step in and do what he has been able to do. Now, if you said, hey, Brian, how many games do they win with Terrence Steele playing right tackle? 5 games. I'm thinking it might be 3 and 2, maybe 2
Right.
and 3. So, I mean, I wasn't very positive about that. Really wasn't positive all about that. But I also have to give him a lot of credit. I have to give Joe Philbin a lot of credit too. Again, my players are a lot different because I think there's obvious guys, but I think there's some guys that have really made a difference. And I mentioned Anthony Brown in this thing too, because I look at him. I look at what Jaron Kearse has done at safety with no Donovan Wilson. As a whole, the safety group, other than what they had happen with KC and Diggs on that 75-yard play, this group's been pretty solid. So it's hard to focus on one individual guy for each spot, because I think collectively as a position, the safety, the tackle, and the running backs have really done a nice job for you and allow, again, you could talk about the quarterbacks, the receivers, Randy Gregory, but if you go really deeper into these things, there's a lot of backup guys that have helped this team get to be 5-1 right now.
And 2 guys I'll pick out specifically when it comes to the running backs and the safeties. We'll start with Ezekiel Elliott, who's 5th in the NFL in rushing this year, averaging 5.1 yards per carry. It seems like a resurgent Ezekiel Elliott, a motivated player who I think has a lot to prove that he is still one of the more complete backs in this league when you start thinking about his ability to run the football, blocking ability, being able to catch the ball out of the backfield. Ezekiel Elliott has taken it upon his shoulders to prove to people that, hey, I still got it. And this is not something that from last year is something that would carry forward into this year. So I give him a lot of credit for really taking it upon himself to remind people of who he is as a player and what he has become as one of the best running backs in the NFL, and reminding folks that, hey, I still got it. I know Derrick Henry's out there, Nick Chubb and these guys are out there. Ezekiel Elliott reminding folks of who he is also. And then to your point with the safeties, again, it's amazing where these Cowboys find these players at. And they found one in Jaron Kearse, a guy who was a special teams guy coming from Detroit, didn't even feel like he may even make the roster by the time the season started. And he has come in as a house on fire, made some really nice plays against the Patriots last Sunday, and has really proven a lot of folks wrong, including myself. Like, hey, this is a guy who's a thumper. He comes in, plays hard. I've been surprised at how well he's played against the run. This is a guy who's willing to participate in the run game. And I think Jaron Kearse has had a tremendous impact on the safeties.
To your point, KG, he didn't make the start against Tampa, but he started every game since. And I believe his number since that starts is like 29 tackles, 4 tackles for loss. He has done a great job. We laugh about the dollar store. We went to the dollar store and usually that backfires for the Cowboys. Usually when they go shop at the dollar store, it doesn't work out well. But all these safeties have worked out really well for them. And especially when you thought, we were screaming that, hey, they've got to get safeties. They got to get safeties. And then they go to the dollar store, like I said, and they get these safeties, and you're expecting the absolute worst. I got to give George Edwards, the linebacker coach, a lot of credit because he knew Kearse from Minnesota. He had been with Kearse in Minnesota, and they kind of talked about him as he is a big guy, a physical guy, and all that. More like you said, special teams guy. I know when like Jeff Kavanaugh and I were studying him during the draft, he couldn't cover me. So those are the kinds of that's where improvement. That's where a lot of improvement has been made.
And, of course, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention guys like Dak Prescott, who's been an NFC Offensive Player of the Week this past week when they played against the Patriots. Zach Martin, Trayvon Diggs, who continues to be special for the Cowboys. A lot of players have been real contributors to this football team. I think that's the most encouraging part is it's not just been the veteran guys. It's a lot of young guys, the Osa Digizuas of the world. We mentioned guys like we haven't even mentioned Micah Parsons yet. What how he started this. There's been a lot of guys with a mix of young players and veterans who have really contributed to help this team be where they are. And I think that's a credit to the coaching staff in a lot of ways for getting these guys ready to play, that we've been able to see as many guys contribute as they have so far this season.
Usually it's lip service, KG, when these coaches talk about, oh, we've got to put guys in position to make plays. It's like coach speak, and we all kind of go, yeah. We look up. Yeah. But in reality, what Dan Quinn has done is he took Micah Parsons and made him a rush in when he didn't have a rush in. He could have left Micah Parsons at linebacker and said, I don't want to mess with his development there. But he had the vision to say, hey, Micah Parsons can play here. Oh, Osa Odighizuwa can play here. Oh, by the way, we can move on from Jalen Smith and plug in Keanu Neal and be just fine here. Oh, by the way, I could start Curse. I could play him down. Oh, he makes a tackle for loss that gets the Patriots to have to punt on 3rd and 1. Okay. That's where, look at what they've done on offense. We didn't mention how about Wilson? How about what Noah Brown's done? Noah Brown plays 29% of the offensive snaps. He's got like six catches, 7 targets for like a 16-yard average per catch. See, they've got guys that have completely filled in when things look pretty bleak. Like, oh, wow, we're missing our starting defensive end. That's okay. Oh, we're missing our starting offensive tackle. And we didn't even mention him, by the way, getting to come back. Lyle Collins.
Yeah, that's right.
So, that just shows you the job that these coaches and these players have done. And the buy-in for everybody over there is real. And that's why you're having success.
The Cowboys look to continue to get healthy as Dak Prescott looks to be trending toward playing against the Minnesota Vikings. As Brian just mentioned, Lyle Collins back from his 5-game suspension, looking to see him back at the right tackle spot. Terrence still doing a good job there while he was out. And the Cowboys seem to be rolling in the right direction. We'll see how they get ready for their week of preparation here as they get ready to take on the Minnesota Vikings on Sunday Night Football. That does it for the Boys Collective episode number 7 right here on 105 Through the Fan here on YouTube. Be sure to hit that notifications button so that you know when the episodes drop. We'll have our Wednesday show on Wednesday, news and notes from America's team as they get ready to practice, but also as they get ready for their preparations to take on the Vikings. The latest on what's going on with Dak Prescott, Michael Gallup, and others. We'll get you caught up on that on our Wednesday show. For the Super Bowl winning scout, Brian Broaddus at 1/4 of the G-Bag Nation. My name is Kevin Gray. We'll talk to you on Wednesday on the Boys Collective for episode number 8 right here on 105 Through the Fan here on YouTube. We'll talk to you later.